Matthew Whitaker was on Newsmax, and he brings up there's a smoking gun. This is I know the language might be a little soft for some people, but this is the smoking gun in Biden investigation, Whitaker. Okay, I don't know what it is. I haven't pre-watched this. Let's find out what the smoking gun is. It's Friday. It's 4:39 my time. There's a I think is it raining out here? No, rain stopped. Okay. So far the backyard is not completely flooded. Okay, so we're good. So yeah, smoking gun. Here it comes. This is it. I mean, it'll be over by the weekend. Biden won't last. This is a smoking gun. It's a smoking gun. As analogies go, that's pretty direct. Yeah. I'm a sick man. You keep rubbing your nose in. Yeah, I don't do drugs. Sorry. Yeah, I don't do drugs or drink or anything like that. So try harder. It's good. All right.
So Joe Biden has been president now for 2.5 years.
Yes. And I like you saying that just because I know it upsets you. Hold on.
His approval rating is lower than any president outside of Jimmy Carter this far into his first term. And it looks...
You know what's weird? Is Jimmy Carter created more jobs than Donald Trump did in one term. Both one-termers, point to point. Yeah.
It's like Americans are starting to wise up.
Oh, yes. The New York Post. Thank God.
Joining us now, former acting U.S. Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Welcome in.
Hey, good morning,
Matt. Good to see
you. Everybody, I'm over at Tucker's house. He let me use the flag outhouse.
I like wood
and
deeper and longer.
Happy Friday. We just learned about these 40.
Happy Friday. America's dying.
4,500 emails where President Biden was VP and he was signing these emails using fake names.
No, again, common practice. And they're archived. They're part of his government work.
We had James Comer on with us yesterday, and he made it clear that the Oversight Committee wants these emails from the National Archives, but the National Archives says that they're not going to send them to the Oversight Committee unless Joe Biden and Barack Obama approve the release of the emails.
Yeah, it's part of the Presidential Records Act and the reasoning behind it. You can subpoena them, I suppose, if there's a crime.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, guess what? We're back in the Presidential Records Act, which only seems to help Democrats. And
right, because Donald Trump wasn't following the Presidential Records Act when he took classified documents because he was no longer fucking president, and those aren't records.
And, certainly has been not helpful to former President Trump and his.
Well, yeah, it's not the fault of the the Presidential Records Act. It's the fault of his sort of like gelatinous paste-like brain not being able to process reality.
Battle over presidential records. But that being said, Rob, what we have here is a situation where the Obama-Biden administration that ended in 2016 could easily wave a magic wand and say, you know what, we want to be transparent. We want to demonstrate that we have nothing to hide and we're going to share these documents. And instead, they're stonewalling. And why are they?
Yeah, I agree. You know what? But first, I mean, since it's a timely nature, the timeliness of the documents themselves, most of what happened in the Obama-Biden administration can stand up to scrutiny as far as bills passed and decisions made and all that kind of stuff. They can argue that, Trump's are nearer and the impacts of some of those decisions have yet to be felt. That's how it often works out. So I would suggest that, you know what, Trump and Obama should sit down and agree to give the communications that Obama and Biden did about their schedules using another name to organize these things. And Trump will give all of his communications with, from, and to Jared Kushner, and whom Jared Kushner was conversing with during the Trump presidency. Yeah, just at the same time.
Stonewalling, because these are the documents. This is the smoking gun.
No, it's not. The DOJ has access to these, so Bill Barr would have been able to see them while Trump was president.
Shows that Joe Biden was directly involved with his son, Hunter Biden, and his...
No, they don't.
Business dealings, gave him important intelligence that was not publicly available so that Hunter Biden could do his business transactions and help his Ukrainian friends at Burisma and elsewhere.
Move from a Russian-controlled corruption architecture that had existed in the country since the fall of the Soviet Union to a freer and more democratic version of things where Burisma is now a functioning company, and before it was a sock puppet of the Russian government meant to undermine oil and gas exploration and production in Ukraine. Nah.
So that the Biden family could profit.
To be clear, it is illegal if you are in an office like Biden was vice president at the time to use that office to benefit financially through doing business with foreign countries.
So you're not going to bring on Jared Kushner right after he's done? You're sure you want to bring this up? Because you're talking about the Bidens who have their main house and their lake house versus Trump, who is in debt up to $400 to $600 million to God knows fucking who.
But you're right. If they were to just have not done anything wrong, releasing the emails would completely alleviate them from the blame. Do you think that we will see these emails, or will they be swept under the rug just like the cocaine in the White House?
They didn't sweep the cocaine under the rug in the White House. It got dropped into a visitor's box. You remember that particular scandal? How that never played out because you can't really tell who it was or whatever. Whoever dropped it off made sure there was no DNA on it. So, I mean, I think here's the easy thing. There's no fingerprints, no DNA on it. So clearly, you go back through the footage and you look who came to visit wearing rubber gloves.
Well, that's a really good point. And, it's not only whether or not Joe Biden benefited from his official duties, but whether his family did. And that,
What if they were hurt by it? What if they were hurt by it? Because the guys that, again, Zlochevsky basically had Shokin on a short leash. He was paying him off to leave him alone. And then he gets fired, and the guy that goes after him, he ends up having to flee the country.
That is the to me, what the conspiracy is here. And that is, it was very clear that Joe Biden knew what Hunter was doing. And these emails will help tell us and fill out that picture.
Especially the ones where he's like, look, you can't tell people that I'm going to help you out because I'm just not, son.
And that, Hunter Biden, who's, the son of the then vice president, was benefiting financially from that. Now, the more interesting thing
is how Devin Archer made more money, and he's not even related to Biden. Did Joe Biden like Devin Archer more than Hunter?
And in addition to all of that is, how Joe Biden, who used to call himself Amtrak Joe, said he was the poorest member of the Senate and had been in public service since the Nixon administration.
Right.
Suddenly can afford, multiple houses, including.
Well, you have 23 years of his taxes. It's pretty fucking easy. Also, just for the record, once you become vice president or even become a presidential candidate and then become vice president and then, live through that time and then post-presidency, a lot of your house costs and shit like that can kind of go down because the government has to protect you. And so there are a lot of normal things about your life that the government has to kind of pick up, kind of like in your health care and the like. These expenditures that get very expensive for a lot of people go away. But you can look at his taxes, 23 fucking years. You can see exactly how the house was bought, how they own it. Like, it's just stupid. And he knows this, by the way.
Beachfront property in his home state of Delaware.
Yes. Beachfront property in Delaware at the lake is just it's fuck Miami and Beverly Hills or like Malibu. Fuck Malibu. That's not, these aren't the beaches. It's the fine, comforting beaches of Delaware, especially on the lake where they're, insofar as I can see where the house is, there is no beach.
It is an accumulation of massive wealth.
Massive wealth. Massive. Guys, it's massive wealth. Hold on. I think I'm just going to say that I think it probably is just the Biden brand is worth a lot. And that's what elevates their net worth. This works for Trump. Why not work for him? Okay, so Biden. Let's see. Okay. We'll go up to here. How much is Joe Biden worth? Let's find out. After cashing in during the Trump era, Joe Biden is once again taking government paycheck. That's not stopping him from continuing to add millions to his fortune. President Biden is worth an estimated $10 million, up from $8 million when he took office. The increase has nothing to do with family business dealings in far-flung countries. Instead, he's getting richer by doing what a lot of 80-year-old Americans are doing, sitting on real estate. The president owns 2 homes in Delaware that are worth an estimated $7 million combined. So his entire, of his $10 million net worth, $7 million is the houses. 1.8 million more than when he took office. So they were 5 when he took office. The most valuable property is a 4,800 square foot summer home in Rehoboth Beach, worth an estimated 4.5 million. Biden bought it in 2017, the year he left the vice presidency, and earned 11.1 million, cashing in on speeches and books. He bought it in 2017. I don't remember who was president in 2017, but I'm sure someone in the chat will tell me. He added a pool, which may have cost as much as $75,000 in November of that year. All this seemed like a splurge at the time, but it proved to be a wise investment. During the pandemic, homebuyers flocking to bigger properties with outdoor amenities like Biden's, 7 minutes from the ocean and next to a state park loaded with biking trails. 7 minutes from the ocean. That's a big fucking beach. Can you imagine walking on a beach for 7 minutes to reach the water? That's more like a mini desert. All right. Next to a state park loaded with biking trails. That's why Trump would never buy there. The home is now worth an estimated $4.5 million, 1.7 more than it originally cost. The president owns an even larger, though not quite as valuable house in Wilmington's picturesque Greenville neighborhood. It started at just a piece of land, which Biden bought for $350,000 in 1996, before adding a 6,850 square foot colonial style home 2 years later. Then a 1,900 square foot cottage in 2005. For years, it was Biden's most valuable asset. He refinanced it repeatedly until receiving his 2017 windfall. Today, the property is worth an estimated $2.5 million, $700,000 more than it was worth 2 years ago. Combined, Biden's homes make up about 2/3 of his personal fortune. Middle-class Joe, whose spokespeople did not respond to questions for comment, has long had an appreciation for some of the finer things in life. His father, Joe Sr., had a series of fledgling businesses before finding his niche as a car dealer. When Joe Jr. got married to his first wife in '67, his father gave him a 1967 Corvette Stingray, paying $5,600 at the time, $51,000 in today's dollars. Decent investment. The car remains in the president's garage and is worth an estimated $100,000 a day today. Part of his net worth is a fucking car he's had since 1967. He's the original owner. Jesus Christ. I'm starting to think Biden should have written Art of the Deal. Biden's love for real estate goes back just as far. When he was in his mid-20s, Biden purchased 3 houses and 85 acres in Maryland, hoping to one day turn it into a family compound. In the short term, he tried to make money from it, renting out the homes. Meanwhile, he and his family lived rent-free in a cottage nearby. They lived in the cottage and rented out the houses. You know, like the Trumps would do, in exchange for managing a local pool. Jesus Christ. He and his family lived rent-free in a cottage nearby in exchange for managing a local pool. Money was tight. He later explained in his memoir, "I was in constant danger of falling behind." It's all the worth of his houses. He's got a pension, which is a big chunk of it, and other holdings, which is just kind of random. Nonetheless, he bought an even bigger house in 1975, a 10,000 square foot mansion that once belonged to a storied Delaware family, the DuPonts, with a courtyard, pool house, circular drive, and colonnade. The house was spectacular, so much so that misinformation warriors, including former first son Eric Trump, used it to accuse Biden of corruption in the 2020 presidential race, long after Biden had sold the property. The truth of how he acquired it was more mundane. Biden took on a lot of debt. Earning about $43,000 as U.S. Senator at the time, he borrowed $160,000 to purchase the place for $185,000. He bought a 10,000 square foot mansion in 1975 for $185,000. He held on to the home, and thanks to rising property values, even turned it into something of a piggy bank. When he needed cash, he refinanced the property, taking out more and more debt as the years went on. How did all the mainstream middle-class people get their wealth? Biden asked a group of mayors earlier. 90% of them through investing in their homes. That was certainly true in his case. In '96, he sold the mansion for $1.2 million, then plunked down $350,000 for a piece of land nearby where he had plans to build a new home on a pond. You know, a beach with a, you know, the good old beachfront pond property. Biden constructed 2 houses on the property, turning it into the Wilmington estate he owns today. He proceeded to treat it like a piggy bank, too, repeatedly refinancing over the years. After he became vice president, Secret Service started renting the cottage, reportedly paying him $26,400 annually. Fucking Trump was getting that by the month at Mar-a-Lago. One year, his son's bone hunter paid to rebuild the engine of his Corvette. But money was still a problem for the family, especially when Bo got sick with cancer, which ultimately killed him in 2015. Joe Biden contemplated selling the Wilmington home to help out with the medical bills. Barack Obama told him that if he needed extra money, he'd be happy to personally cover the expenses. Cash came pouring in after Biden left the White House. Former vice president earned $11.1 million in 2017, 4.6 in 2018, $1 million in 2019, and $630,000 in 2020, the year he was elected commander-in-chief. Between his time as vice president and president, his net worth shot up from an estimated 2.5 to 8. Now he's even richer thanks to real estate holdings, which have helped his, and again, he's just sitting on his house. It's not like he's fucking gambling on real estate. Never much of a stock investor, Biden has plenty of cash on hand. Today, he and First Lady Jill Biden have less than $310,000 invested in the market, all held in mutual funds. Much more is simply sitting in bank accounts. The president collects $400,000 a year in salary, plus a $250,000 pension payout. Should he want any extra liquidity down the road, he can always borrow against his holdings. At the end of the last year, the president took out a home equity line of credit against the Rehoboth property, allowing him to draw as much as $250,000. One asset that's off limits, though, is the Corvette. They tell me it's worth a lot of money, Biden said at the White House bill signing last year, but I know if I ever sell it, Bull will come down from heaven and smite me down. His sons rebuilt the engine on it so it would keep running. The fucking story that these assholes tell about the money, the fucking money. For a former, like, fucking hell. Wait, let me, one more time. Let me look something else up. Let's see. Here's Dick Cheney. You want to see how much Dick Cheney's worth? His net worth, $150 million. Just saying. Biden's president of the United States right now, he's worth about $10 million because his houses have gone up because he just stays in them, fixes them up, and then has refinanced them until he was able to pay off the financing. And he even took out a secondary loan, like, oh, God damn it. So, Dick Cheney's worth $150 million. How about that? Let me do this. How about, fuck. Dan Quayle is worth almost as much. Dan Quayle, yeah, here you go. Dan Quayle's net worth is $7 million. Is anybody going to buy, like, Dan Quayle's fucking book? Potato is spelled with an E, god damn it. Like, all right. How about, well, shit, how about, fuck it, why don't we just go at George W. Bush's? Well, shit, let's go here. Net worth in millions. Let's see, this is the down. Here's the list of net worth of presidents. We're going to talk about amassing a fortune while in the White House. All right, here we go. This is from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. Donald Trump, obviously way out there in the $3 billion. He's mad because it says Trump is claimed to be worth $10 billion, but his financial disclosure and campaign statements vary. Forbes estimated his net worth at $3 billion in 2022. So he's got a little asterisk. George Washington, $707 million in modern U.S. dollars. In 2022 dollars, George Washington was rich. But then, of course, just fucking having land made you rich back then. So Thomas Jefferson, $284 million. Theodore Roosevelt, $168 million. Andrew Jackson, James Madison. Get to Lyndon Johnson and we're in the modern era in a lot of ways. He was worth 131 million, in modern 2022 dollars. Herbert Hoover, Kennedy 99, Bill Clinton 90. That makes sense. I mean, whatever. Franklin Roosevelt 79, right there. John Tyler, George Bush. There you go. Barack Obama's at 48. George Bush is at 47. James Monroe, Martin Van Buren, Grover Cleveland, George H.W. Bush. And Richard Nixon was worth 20 million in modern time. Let's see, 2022 dollars. Jimmy Carter's down here at 9. Gerald Ford. Look, Joe Biden's just $1 million more than Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. Not even in the top 10. Yeah, Cheney. I thought Cheney was dead too. I don't know why. That's weird. I would assume that if he croaks, there'll be a big noise about it. But I just thought quietly he'd sort of. I think a lot of people associate his death with Scalia, like they were both joined together, like this, like a Skeksis or something.
Suddenly, as soon as he leaves the vice presidency, and remember that was really only.
No, it wasn't suddenly. There was nothing sudden about it. Book deal and speeches. Wasn't sudden. You know what's sudden? A $3 billion wealth fund where $2 billion of it comes from the Saudis within weeks of leaving the White House in Jared Kushner. That's suddenly.
For a short period of time, about 2 years.
About 2 years. Yeah, just enough time to get a book deal, write a book, sell the book, and then do a bunch of speeches, and then report all that income.
Then he was running for president.
Right. Good point. Okay. So Georgia Governor Brian Kemp yesterday basically decided that he will not step in to remove Fani Willis from her role as district attorney or from her role in this case. I'm wondering.
Yeah, it'd be a little weird.
So he could do something.
It'd be a little weird if a witness, a potential witness in the case, is able to and does get rid of Trump's rival in the legal, fuck up. Yeah, it's Fani. Look, she's not buying it though. Notice how that's how much of this video is a 5-minute 20-second segment on Newsmax. 3 minutes and 28 seconds is about the smoking gun. They're switching channels about they're switching the conversation now. Did you hear a smoking gun in this? This asshole who was an acting attorney general, Trump put him in place, and everybody else was like, fuck, when he was filling people with sycophants and when he was going to take over the fucking government. This is it wouldn't be surprising if this dickhead was one of the unindicted co-conspirators. Right? Call it that out of covert disrespect. I agree. Yeah. So his argument and what he's saying here is that the archived communications using government emails and the conversations that will be in them, that Joe Biden, who has been in government since the Nixon administration, apparently, would not know that those emails that they created specifically so that he could talk without somebody filling up his fucking joe.biden@whitehouse.gov account with fucking spam, that they had to create those so they could actually have communications. Anybody with a famous name in government needs one, right? And there's a reason why they don't just give you a number or something, which is oh, they give you a number, that's definitely Joe Biden. Or they give you a number, that's definitely Barack Obama or the staff around there. So that's all you got to do. If you haven't caught Joe Biden now because he's this criminal mastermind, what the fuck makes you think he would do something so stupid as to talk about business and all this stuff or say there's no evidence, while he knows there's evidence in government archived emails that he supposedly used while in office? It's just dumb.